And you can't hold me to just being a nice little Mexican that only plays mariachi music. I mean, there's a lot of beauty in that, but it's not for me. Everything from Bob Dylan to Curtis Mayfield and the Beatles.
Carlos Santana isn't just a legendary guitarist. He's a believer in music as a spiritual force. While many rock icons built their legacy on noise and spectacle, Santana followed a different calling, one of soul, emotion, and transcendence. His guitar doesn't scream. It speaks in whispers and wails, channeling something far beyond showmanship. That deeper vision hasn't always aligned with the industry around him. Santana has taken pointed stands against artists who, in his eyes, turn music into a commercial performance rather than a sacred craft. He's been vocal, unapologetic, and in return, he's drawn fire from some of the biggest names in rock history. These weren't casual disagreements, they were philosophical divides. Today, we reveal 6 musicians who clashed with Santana's uncompromising view of music. Let's start with number 6. Number 6, Gene Simmons. At the top of Santana's anti-artistry list is none other than Gene Simmons, the fire-breathing, tongue-wagging bassist of Kiss. To Santana, Simmons represents everything music shouldn't be: a brand, a product, a spectacle. While Simmons turned Kiss into a merchandising machine, selling everything from shirts to actual Kiss-branded coffins, Santana stayed grounded in his belief that music is sacred. He's taken indirect shots at bands like Kiss, saying, "Some bands need to wear makeup just to be heard. I'd rather let music show a human face, not a mask." And in another jab, if you need fire, lights, platforms, and a rubber tongue to get attention, your music isn't doing its job. Simmons, never one to back down, responded by calling Santana boring, pretentious, and too spaced out to relate to real audiences, dismissing his spiritual messages as out of touch. For Santana, the stage is an altar. For Simmons, it's a business platform. And that fundamental clash of values is why these two have never, and likely will never, share a musical moment. In Santana's world, there's simply no room for smoke, mirrors, and marketing gimmicks. Number 5, Ted Nugent. If Carlos Santana stands for spirituality, compassion, and cultural unity, then Ted Nugent might just be his polar opposite. Known for his loud stage presence and even louder political views, Nugent has used his fame to promote ultra-conservative ideas, often laced with racism, homophobia, and inflammatory language. While Santana avoids naming names, he's made his stance clear. In a 2017 interview, he said, "I'm not interested in the opinions of people who live in fear, promote hate, and think violence is the answer. Music should lift us up, not chain us to ignorance." Many took this as a thinly veiled reference to Nugent, especially since Ted had publicly insulted Latin artists like Shakira, mocked the Black Lives Matter movement, and even ridiculed Santana's accent on air, calling him a delusional hippie with a guitar. Carlos never fired back. That's not his style. Instead, he let his silence and values speak louder. He didn't name Nugent directly, but his message was crystal clear. Santana doesn't share space, musically or morally, with anyone spreading hate. Put simply, the idea of these two sharing a stage is laughable. In Santana's universe, music is an act of love. And Nugent? He doesn't even get an invitation. Number 4, Eric Clapton. Back in the 60s and 70s, Eric Clapton and Carlos Santana were seen as two titans of the guitar world. Clapton was the blues god from England. Santana, the Latin shaman blending African roots, indigenous mysticism, and psychedelic soul. They admired each other, played the same festivals, and shared a deep love for blues. But everything changed in 1976. On stage in Birmingham, a visibly drunk Clapton shocked fans by supporting anti-immigration politician Enoch Powell, declaring, "We need to get the foreigners out. England belongs to the white man." To Santana, an immigrant himself, born in Mexico and raised in the U.S., these words cut deep. Music, for him, was about healing and unity. Hearing someone he once respected preach exclusion and hate left a lasting scar. Though Clapton later apologized, blaming alcohol, Santana wasn't convinced. You can say it was the booze, he said years later, but your soul doesn't lie when your ego takes over. When asked in 2001 if he'd ever collaborate with Clapton again, Carlos responded coldly, "I respect his talent, but not his heart." Since then, their paths have stayed apart. Santana avoids mentioning Clapton and steers clear of performing anything tied to him. His silence isn't just personal, it's a statement of principle. Number 3. Miles Davis. You'd think that Carlos Santana and Miles Davis would be musical soulmates, two visionaries breaking boundaries, blending genres and redefining sound. And for a while, it looked like they were. Santana revered Miles, calling him a sonic alchemist who could melt down genres, eras, and emotions into something otherworldly. "Miles made me feel like a kid learning to speak," Santana once said, expressing both awe and humility. But admiration doesn't always go both ways. In the 1980s, Miles gave a brutal interview where he dismissed Santana outright. "That guy's just a noisy hippie. Sounds like he's stuck in a permanent acid trip. All flowers, no fire." A quick jab, but it landed hard. For Santana, those words were devastating. "I worshipped him, and he threw a stone at me," he later confessed. True to form, Santana didn't retaliate. He didn't blast Davis in interviews or fire back through music. Instead, he quietly distanced himself. Over time, he stopped naming Miles as a direct influence, avoided tributes, and never sought reconciliation. To Santana, Miles Davis was both a guiding light and a painful lesson, that even your idols can wound you. And instead of chasing validation, Carlos chose to keep shining in his own space, learning that not all heroes return the love they're given. Number 2. David Gilmour. Carlos Santana and David Gilmour never exchanged direct blows, but that silence speaks volumes. On paper, both are masters of emotion, tone, and guitar wizardry. But spiritually, they're worlds apart. Pink Floyd built its legacy on sprawling soundscapes, technical precision, and mind-bending visuals. Santana, on the other hand, channels something raw, spontaneous, and deeply human. In interviews, he's made subtle jabs that many believe were aimed at bands like Pink Floyd. You can have 10,000 pedals, synthesizers, and lights, but if there's no soul, there's nothing. While Santana has acknowledged Pink Floyd's cultural impact, he's also said their music makes him think, not feel, and that's a problem for him. There's never been a public feud, but you won't find Floyd songs on Santana's playlists, nor any praise from Carlos directed at Gilmour. For Santana, the emotional cry of a B.B. King solo means more than a flawless wall of sound. Where Gilmour builds sonic cathedrals, Santana builds shrines to the heart. His rejection is quiet but firm, a subtle shake of the head rather than a slammed door. And in Santana's world, that silence says it all. Number 1. Carlos Santana versus Carlos Santana? Yes, you read that right. Perhaps the most intense conflict in Santana's life hasn't been with Gene Simmons, Ted Nugent, or even Eric Clapton. It's been with himself. Behind the spiritual aura, the Grammy wins, and the legendary Woodstock performance, Carlos Santana has wrestled for decades with identity, ego, and artistic purpose. He's spoken openly about his inner battles, tried to reconcile commercial success with staying true to his roots, and navigating a world that often wants to box him into categories he's never fit into. At various points in his career, Santana has criticized his own past decisions. He's admitted to moments where he felt like a sellout, especially during the late 90s and early 2000s when hits like Smooth with Rob Thomas catapulted him back into mainstream fame. Critics praised it, fans loved it, but Carlos? He later said that part of him felt disconnected from the soul of that music. In interviews, he's questioned whether chasing chart success pulled him too far from the spiritual path that first ignited his passion. "There were times I felt I lost my way," he admitted. "I was playing notes, but not feeling them." This battle between art and commerce, spirit and spotlight, is one that has haunted many legends. But Santana, always the seeker, has tried to resolve it not with noise, but with silence, reflection, and humility. Instead of clinging to the past, he retreats, meditates, and returns renewed, trying again to make music that heals, not just entertains. And maybe that's the most powerful rivalry of all, the one within. Because in the end, Carlos Santana's greatest enemy was never another guitarist. It was forgetting who he truly was. Carlos Santana has always played by a different set of rules, guided not by trends or fame, but by spirit, emotion, and integrity. In a world full of noise, he chose to listen inward. And when others drifted too far from what he believed music should be, he didn't hesitate to speak his truth, even if it meant standing alone. These 6 names represent more than personal feuds. They're a glimpse into the heart of an artist who sees music as sacred and refuses to compromise that belief for anyone. Which of these rivalries surprised you the most? Do you think Santana was right to distance himself from these artists? Or did some of them deserve a second chance? Let us know in the comments. And if you love stories like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into the legends of music. Thanks for watching. Stay soulful. Guitar.